Our guest today is Dr. Anthony Ocampo. He is a writer and professor born and raised in Los Angeles. He's the author of two award-winning books, Brown and Gay in L.A. and The Latinos of Asia, How Filipino Americans Break the Rules of Race. His research on immigration, race, and LGBTQ issues has appeared and been cited in LA Times, NPR, NBC News, Time, all the places.
Damn.
He's out there. It's been cited a lot, actually. It's very important research for the community, and it's incredible that we even have that. Dr. Ocampo is a graduate of UCLA, Go Bruins, and Stanford University. You might have heard of it. He's also the chair of the Department of Sociology at Cal Poly Pomona and a fellow Heated Rivalry fan. Do you know what Heated Rivalry is?
This is gonna be like Jesse McCartney all over again.
Okay, listen.
I don't know what Heated Rivalry is.
You need to be more of a young girl.
I need to get in touch
With your inner young girl.
Okay, with the
Please.
okay.
Yeah. We all
My
need that.
inner childlike feminine energy.
Yes, exactly. Heated Rivalry. We didn't get into it in this episode, unfortunately, because we filmed it before Heated Rivalry, but he DM'd me. It's basically a gay hockey show. Oh my God, it's so good.
And 5, 6, 7, 8.
Sweet spaghetti. Why is that spaghetti so sweet?
Sweet spaghetti.
So, yeah, I don't know if you remember how I reached out to you,
Yeah.
but I saw your profile and I was like, wait, your name looks familiar. And then a memory came flooding in. And then I DM'd you.
Hopefully.
Well, I DM'd you a whole message.
Yes.
And it was because it was a whole thing. Okay, I'm going to read it very quickly, how I reached out to you. And it was a risk because I was like, I hope he doesn't get offended by this. But it's not.
I'm
It's not.
scared.
No, okay.
Okay,
I don't.
what do I
You'll
say?
you'll
What
probably
do-
remember. I was like, "Hi, Anthony. I was in a library in SF a couple months ago when I picked up your book, which was displayed on the front of the shelf there. It was like a staff pick at the library. As a queer Filipino woman in LA, I was intrigued and eager to read it. I cracked it open when suddenly I hit a wall. I had just flown in from a 2-month Manila trip the day before. I flew directly to San Francisco after like a 2-month, I literally just said that, 2-month Manila trip. You'd think I was drugged, roofied by jet lag. I had no choice but to take a nap right then and there in this unassuming library in San Francisco. However, I'm acne prone and did not want my face touching this public library table. But I felt that I could trust this book about being brown and gay in LA. And I somehow trust the type of person that had previously touched it. I'd like to think that people who resonate with brown and gay people in LA have good hygiene. So I laid my head down on top of your beautiful book, took the best nap of my life. By the time I woke up, the library was closing and I had to go meet friends for dinner. So basically, I just said that your book is such a good nap book because I just fully intended to read it. I had downtime, but I just fell asleep and I didn't know, obviously, Anthony at the time. And I was like, oh, I'm going to send this message. I hope he gets a little smile out of it. Or he could be like, oh, fuck this.
Wait, what did I say back?
You were very positive. You had laughed, I think. Hold on. You said, this is the absolute best story. You are a diva queen goddess. No, you didn't.
I just do that. I was like,
This is the absolute best story. And yeah, hooray for queer Filipino fan. Nice to meet you. I'm also an Angelino. So you were receptive to it. And I remember you didn't respond for a few minutes. I was like, oh my God, should I unsend it? He hates me. This is so offensive. This is such an important piece of work for the Filipino gay community.
And you're like, it's a great pillow.
Yeah, I just slept on top of it, but I did finish it now. So
oh man, I'm turning red. I'm my face is getting sweaty. You can't see it. You can't hear it. You obviously can't see that when you're just listening, but I do remember you sending that, and I'm happy that something that was brown and gay that you touched was cleaned, because there are many brown and gay things I've touched that are not. So
Let's dive into that.
that's actually all I want to talk about.
yeah, dirty brown and gay
Brown
things.
gay things.
No, I do remember that, and I'm happy you reached out, because I think That's the point of writing books. I don't get when people write things and they get mad when people reach out, because what's the point of spending all these years writing a book, writing an article, if you don't want people to connect to you? So I feel like that's what I learned from writing the first book, is that
Latinos of Asia.
yeah, the
Yeah.
first book, The Latinos of Asia, is about Filipinos and how they kind of fit somewhere between Filipino and Latino. You have a story about that, apparently. I'm sure you have more. But
That's so funny. Okay, we will be diving into that.
yeah, but books, who would have thought? Like, you just meet people from around the world that somehow find the book, it's on display or it's
Yeah.
assigned in a class or something. And I mean, the best thing you could ever want is someone to just like cold message you. So
Yeah.
I'm happy you did.
It was like there were angels singing. It was like shining in front of my face. I walked into the one of the SF libraries. I was visiting my best friend, and I had just come from a really exhausting Manila trip, and so I was naturally jet lagged. And I just went into that library. It was a staff pick, and the title and the cover are just beautiful, and it resonates.
Yeah.
It'll catch your attention. I think. I don't know if it's because we are who we are that it resonates, but like Brown and Gay in LA, there is a ring to it.
Yeah, the cover, I'm very proud. I was very insistent that would be the cover. If you look closely, it's the LA. It's not the skyline, but you can see it's the mountains, and the
Yeah.
Hollywood sign is very tiny in the back. And I told the publisher I wanted it to look like an ad for Insecure, Issa Rae's show.
Yes.
I don't know why
Oh.
women knew what Insecure was, but they went with my recommendation. So yeah, I love the cover.
Oh wait, I see it now. No, I love that. That's awesome. So you're currently the chair of the Department of Sociology in Cal Poly Pomona. Oh! But I wanted that's so funny. What that reaction?
You know, the chair, it sounds fancy. So when, for example, when I told my mom and dad, immigrant parents from the Philippines, it's funny because I've written 2 books. I'm working on a third one, and they're always like, they're happy, but for them, it's like that doesn't really hit in the same way. But you tell me you have like a new position or a promotion. So I told them I was the chair. All of a sudden, they're like, that's such a great thing. Can we post about it on Facebook, of course? And can we share it? But yeah, I've been the chair as of July of 2025. Yay. I kind of like it. I mean, part of it is I'm laughing because like you're kind of like the social worker for all the professors. Is the way I describe it. So professors teach the classes. I don't teach that much anymore, but I kind of like if you think about a cruise ship, being a professor is like the performers at like when you watch the show, and being the chair is being the captain. So nobody ever really sees you, but you
Yeah.
got to make sure that the ship doesn't sink, and then all the shows, all the restaurants are moving along smoothly. So it's a lot of putting out fires, to be
Yeah.
honest. So fires from, as you can imagine, they're smart people, but you have a lot of divas that are
Mhm.
academics. And students, honestly, the students are great. I work at Cal Poly. A lot of the students are first in their family to go to college from immigrant families, and they're amazing. They're just really great human beings. The professors are mostly like, I love my department, but of course there's characters in the whole school. And sometimes you find your whole day is spent like dealing with some drama that someone's bringing to a meeting or whatever. I can't think of something right now, but half the people that found out I was going to be chair, mostly academics, they wouldn't say congratulations. They would say condolences.
Oh.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But most people outside of academia are like, "Oh, that's cool." And bottom line, I think it's kind of cool. I like kind of being in control, and I'm a little type A, very Virgo, so it works for me.
How did you get to that point? So you have had a very successful academic career. First of all, to even know that that's a possibility as a queer Filipino, that there's a career there. I'm wondering, how you just got there. You were raised in Eagle Rock.
I'm from Eagle Rock. There's a handful of Filipinos there, as anyone knows. It's kind of like, I used to joke, like the Daly City of LA.
It's a good way to
And parents are immigrants from the Philippines. I'm an only child, and my dad he was in real estate. He had an office job in downtown for a while, but then moved into real estate. And then my mom, you can guess what her job was.
Let me think. No. So your mom was a nurse.
My mom was a nurse.
Yes.
She retired a few years back. She was a nurse for Kaiser. So, for them, like what career I did, and I'm an only child, so it was just all the attention was on me, for better or for worse. All their focus was on me to do something that had some economic payoff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of immigrant kids will relate to this, that
Yeah.
there's only like 3 careers. There's like nurse, doctor, lawyer, and then maybe like engineer or something.
Yeah.
So the idea of being a professor actually didn't even occur to me at all until I got to college myself.
Okay. Were you always like a star student though, growing up?
Yeah, I was sorry, that's so cocky. Like,
Well, because you talk about in your book, you talk about academic covering.
yeah.
So I felt, and then knowing your background and hearing about this now, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering how much of that you explored with the people that you interviewed was also relevant to you.
Yeah, I think I learned very early. So I don't know if it was intentional, but I remember growing up, my mom, she would always read books to me, and we would always go to Toys R Us. And of course,
Mhm.
it's like toys, but I would drag her to the area with like the workbooks and stuff. And
Yeah.
she could be
Wait,
like,
at Toys R Us?
at Toys R Us, they had a little section for like
For
math,
the nerds?
Damn.
phonics.
I was going to like the little car you could drive and stuff like that.
Yeah, so of course she had like Transformers and He-Man or whatever, but she always wanted to buy one of those like school book things.
Huh.
So she would give me those and I would work on them. And then I think in somewhere as a kid I noticed like when I did smart things, my
Yeah.
parents were happy.
It's like a Pavlov reaction.
God, yeah.
You're like,
Little
ooh, parent
was-
happy, me do more.
It was
Of that.
rewarded, and and then of course like that feedback loop of like getting positive attention is always good. But I think to your point about this thing I write about in the book called academic covering,
Which is, to those who might not be familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, explain it to those who don't know what
well, most people wouldn't know what it is because it's sort of like a term I like made up for the purpose of the book, but it's this idea that you're carrying some sort of stigma or secret and you're not trying to like deny it, and so you put on a cover so that people know you by some other identity besides that secret that you're carrying.
Yeah.
So for a kid in middle school or high school, the gay kid in middle school or high school, if they do really well in school, then they'll be the smart kid. They'll be the nerd. At least they won't be the gay kid. So the
Right.
cover here is being the smart kid as a way to deflect or to distract from people pointing you out as being the gay kid.
That's so interesting because and I think it also depends maybe how you present. So I grew up in an all-girls Catholic school in the Philippines. But I don't think it was heartbreaking to me reading a lot of the stories in your book and how rejected these kids felt by their own parents, and then how they had to compensate in school or just anywhere to be like, just to get this attention away from me. I'm the smart kid. I'm the sporty kid, just as long as I'm not the gay kid. And it's almost like not embarrassing, but it's like heartbreaking that this is even the first time I'm hearing this, even though I grew up, being with girls
Yeah.
in this Orange is the New Black environment that I was in, because I think also because I was straight passing maybe, so I didn't have to worry about that. But maybe like my butch friends probably felt differently.
I feel like there's a whole book to be written about all girls Catholic schools in the Philippines because every Filipina queer woman I know of different generations talks about how like it was the queerest, most
Oh my
lesbian
God.
space
I had no idea.
ever.
I never even heard of it.
Yeah, well, you grew up in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at a all girls.
Did you grow up in an all-girls Catholic school?
I did not grow up at an all girls Filipino Catholic school.
Oh, that's crazy. I would have.
I didn't get in. I didn't have that. I didn't have the academics for it. So
Yeah, but there is, I think, something to be. I haven't looked into much research on that. I don't know that there is much, but it is this interesting pocket in the world, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
This also depends on the school. But in Manila, in the school where I went to, and to those listening who grew up in Manila, they might have a sense of which one this is. It's this like interesting pocket in the world where it's a sapphic wonderland. Okay, it was a beautiful. I was just like, I had the gayest experience. It was so safe, and I was just like in love and like freaking horny, and like and just was able to explore myself in this school. But of course, you juxtapose that with authority. So I would hide that from the nuns and our parents. But because I'm straight passing, you wouldn't have guessed. Actually, my sister, who at one point, you like have a rivalry growing up,
Mm-hmm.
she wanted me to be like, oh, this girl is not the good girl you think she is, to like my mom, right? And so she caught me texting a girl, and she told my mom and like everyone in the house that I'm in a G to G relationship is what we call it.
Oh my
Girl to
God.
girl. And so no one believed it. And poor sister, she's like, what? She was totally gaslit by me. So there's that. But yes, to that point, it's just very different from what I read in your book, and that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and to your point, I think, well, it's a different environment in the Philippines. I think queerness functions a little bit differently. You can play with gender a little bit more. Obviously, there's
Why is that?
you know, that's a good question. I feel like what I've heard about folks. Actually, I've in the book I interviewed some young men that went to school in the Philippines first, and then they came here, and they said something very similar where all the gay boys joined volleyball.
Yes.
And so they had like boyfriends, even if they weren't explicitly out. And then you come here, and I think there's a couple things going on. Number one, there's the Catholic thing, of course. It's sort of not
Mm-hmm.
allowed to be gay in Catholicism.
Yeah.
And I think too, for immigrant parents, they want the best for their kids. And so anything that puts their kid at risk of being harmed or hurt, they are viscerally reacting to. And I think, if I'm going to be a little generous or sympathetic to some of the immigrant parents, including my own, I think that played into it as well. And I think Filipinos like care about reputation. So of course, like
Right.
their kids
There's
like the
that.
gay, the bakla kid, then maybe they don't want folks like chit-chatting about them. But yeah, I think we learned very early on that there are things that older like authorities, parents, teachers, they react positively to. So for example, doing well in school. And then it's not always the case. They'll say like don't be tomboy or don't be, what'd you say, G2G?
G2G is the relation, is the
Oh, girl to
involvement.
girl?
Yeah, girl to girl.
Girl to girl.
Don't be tibo is usually like more butch lesbian, but tibo, yeah, is like lesbian
Yeah.
for women.
And then they'll also sort of like, they won't say it explicitly, but they'll like sanction you. So as a kid, like
Right.
I was not that into like football or baseball. Still love watching like figure skating and gymnastics, or I watched a lot of like music.
Yeah.
I tried to like learn the choreo of like a
Yeah.
Janet Jackson video. And I knew instinctually that like you do this before mom and dad come home, because if they catch you, they're gonna yell at you or say don't do that, or
Mhm.
boys don't act like that. So we learned the rules of like what's okay and what's not. And it's not just like being gay, like desiring someone the same sex. It's also like gender and how you present as
Right.
well.
Just like the script you're given. I'm curious for both of you, like what was your earliest memories of being taught masculinity, and how if you did something that stepped outside of that, you were punished?
Mine was kind of, my parents didn't impose a lot of that, actually. Like when I was a kid, I remember I wanted to be a witch for Halloween, and my parents were like, okay. And I actually went to a party. Like I went to a party as a witch.
Oh,
Yeah.
against
The
their
hat and everything.
Yeah, like
How
a
old were
wig and
you?
everything.
How-
Like 3rd, 4th grade.
Okay.
Do you have a picture? Can we put a picture?
Yeah,
Throw it up there.
Like a picture.
I have maybe there is, but I know neither of my parents were like, don't do that or anything. They were like, oh, he wants to be a witch, like let him be a witch.
Did you know why at the time?
Well, at the time I thought, because at first I thought like, oh, it'll be funny if I thought like it'll be funny if I dress in drag. But then I was like, oh, it's Halloween, so like a witch is on brand for Halloween.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was like a really witty costume.
Right.
And
You're
they
like
let me
being
go.
a rebel.
But I would say at the same time, I did learn some things. Like I remember my dad would be like, if I was getting in trouble or something, he'd be like, "Are you gonna cry right now?" And I knew like from him that meant like
Don't.
I was gonna have to like repress like what I was feeling. But then I would also say I think I learned a lot of rules also just like socially from around me in the community I was in, which was like much more brown, black area. So there was like sort of this more of a like machismo, masculine, like you got to be hard, you got to present a certain way. So I would say those are my earliest memories of like, but in terms of my parents, like they were actually like pretty chill. Like
Yeah.
they didn't really.
Yeah. Are your parents, were they born here or are they born?
So my dad, well, actually, this is a question. We
Yeah.
were talking about like, because Trish was telling me like the way you define first gen, second gen is a little different than like the conventional understanding. So I thought maybe you would help me parse out what I am. So my dad and all my aunts and uncles were not born in the U.S. Many of my aunts and uncles were born in the Philippines. My dad was born in Japan, but that's because my Lolo joined the army in World War II, got citizenship, and from the Philippines was immediately stationed in Japan.
Got it.
So they all immigrated to the U.S. for the first time together, but my dad was technically born a United States citizen. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
But he remembers with my aunts and uncles getting to America and going, this is a new place. We're dealing with, new social structures here. We're trying to fit in as immigrants. So
Yeah.
I always joke that I'm 1.5. I think according to your, I would be 2.5.
Yeah.
But I always joke I'm like a half because there's a kind of an interesting journey there for me.
It is. And I think your family's story is a little bit complex because the base military thing, it doesn't make it as cut and dry. And all of these labels are just, people make them up, right? And so they're just ways to sort of categorize people broadly, but of course there's nuances in between. But a lot of people will say like, oh, I'm first generation, like I'm the first person in my family to be born in the United States. But that's the way I used it actually a lot. But when I started studying sociology, I guess in sociology they have like a very conventional definition that if you're an immigrant that comes as an adult, you're first generation. I guess it's the way to like count them as like also first generation Americans.
Instead of being like zero, patient zero or whatever, you're like, okay, you're number
Patient zero.
Well, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're giving them a value to like their arrival.
Yes, they want to like acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And then second generation would be if you were born in the United States, but one of your parents is born elsewhere, like Philippines, Mexico, El Salvador, whatever. And then, of course, there's folks that come as kids. So, like, maybe they were going to school in the Philippines for 7, 8, 10, 11 years, and they moved to the United States. So a lot of their life, like teenage adult life, is going to occur in the U.S., but a major part of their childhood occurred in the Philippines. Folks in sociology call that 1.5.
Okay. Yeah, because I was like, I have a lot of friends now here that have moved here as kids, like 6-year-olds, but then immigrant doesn't quite capture that.
Yeah. So, and of course, like there's all different ways to change these definitions. My friend, she's an adoptee. She does radio stuff. But she came when she was like a couple months, and she's technically an immigrant, but
yeah. You're like,
I
I
don't know what to do with her.
myself.
Immigrated myself. Yeah. But she is an immigrant technically, and that affects her in all different ways. But as an adoptee, it's sort of, we don't think about adoptees as immigrants as much.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah,
That's true. I didn't even think of that. So you would be second gen.
I'm
by the definition.
Second gen, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you would be as well.
Second gen as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you were born and raised in LA. Yeah.
And then if I had kids, which I don't, they'd be third gen.
Your dog is
Schmidt is third generation Filipino.
Yeah,
Yes.
there we go. Schmidt counts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I was, I guess, going back to that point of like learning about masculinity at a young age. What struck me while I was reading that was, why is it, I compare it to like my upbringing, which was very female, like having been in an all-girls school, and my household was all women. I always describe it as like this like Wonder Woman Amazonian like world of women, save for my little brother who was compromised because of that. But I don't remember being taught necessarily how to be a woman in the same way. It's more like it almost sounds like young boys are taught how not to be. Oh, you're fine.
Yo, can
You crack that. Yeah.
I'm trying to be.
Yeah, you're good. It's almost like young boys are taught to be masculine by way of not being feminine.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you be masculine? Just don't do things that are womanly or feminine.
It's just don't do things. Don't do anything. Don't care about anything. Don't be moved by a single thing.
Yeah.
You are a man.
Yeah. For example, like if your hand has like a broken wrist, you
Yeah.
do this, or you move your head too much. Or for me, I walked on my tippy toes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I walked on my tippy toes a lot as a kid,
You're like, I actually do that today.
which
a
I
lot.
kind of do. If
Yeah.
I hope there's no B-roll. We have to force me to walk because I'll be walking on my tippy toes.
Okay, there.
There will be now.
Yeah, I got clocked and made fun of by older cousins or classmates at school. If you
Boys
walk a
get
certain way.
bullied.
Bullies.
So, were you bullied as a kid?
Oh yeah, like I would say more. I mean, school, of course. I mean, I feel like everybody's bullied at school. In my family, I don't want to like bully is not the right word, but I got clocked, and I basically got the same message of you, like where you said the crying thing,
Yeah.
where they sort of hinted to you that you shouldn't cry. I think for me it was the way I moved. You talked a certain way. Maybe you talked with like a higher voice or something. So I feel like I learned a lot of ways to prevent. I mean, you just don't want people to be mean to you, so you just figure out a way to assimilate gender in terms of gender presentation.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I feel like nowadays with newer generations of Filipinos, like Brett Man,
Yeah.
he is beloved for being like super effeminate. It was so powerful for me to witness because he's basically doing all the things that we were told not to do by our entire world, and he's owning it.
Do you think him, because Bretman is such an interesting, I think about how Bretman presents too, and I feel like he does such a very it's a balance of like femininity and masculinity that he does so well. Like he's very feminine in such a in like a out of this world way, and also masculine at times when
I mean, he
he
can
wants
deadlift
to be.
more than I
I
can.
was gonna say
Yeah.
ripped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude is shreddy.
and so I wonder if him having grown up in the Philippines for a little bit has anything to do with that, expressing that. And if I wonder, well, we're never gonna know if he grew up in the US fully, if that would have been thwarted. I don't know if there's a difference between American culture and how they deal with masculinity, because you do say in your book that Filipino gay men were less likely than Latinos to describe their home countries as homophobic, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, and so by no means do I want to dismiss. There are a lot of Filipinos back home who experience like very homophobic things and rejection from their parents, but in the Philippines, there's a lot of examples of young boys, young men that can act overtly effeminate, and they're loved by their towns.
Yeah.
I have a friend named Elmer who talked about in his province or where he grew up, there was a Santa Cruzan, one of
Mhm.
those religious
parade,
festivals,
yeah.
and I think the Reina Elena, the queen,
Yeah.
Mary or whatever, was a trans woman, and of course, there's folks like Gina Rosero.
The US could never.
The U.S. could never. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of presence of trans folks in the Philippines. And again, I don't want to oversimplify that like everything is
Right.
smooth sailing for them. But there are spaces in which you're allowed to be you,
Mhm.
whether it's an effeminate boy or a trans girl, or a butch young girl, like a masculine presenting young woman, and it's considered okay. And I think you can find your social world. I feel like growing up, a lot of people have that like one uncle
Yeah.
who or two uncles that that whatever lives with a roommate or just never got married, or the auntie that has the
Yeah. The best, some like some vague friend
vague
that
friend.
you're like, who is that? And when we all can see an image of that aunt, I feel like, in our heads that has that butch friend,
I have a cousin,
a
but
cousin.
they're also married and have kids. And
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't out them on the podcast, just to be clear. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But gender is a little bit more fluid over there. And I think, just like Western culture in general has this obsession with drawing lines of like you're straight or you're gay, you're black or you're white. And in the Philippines, especially like I think Gina Rosero is a great person. She has a memoir called Horse Barbie, which is a fun read. I really like I learned a lot from reading that book and hearing her story, but talks about how pre-colonial times like gender transgressing wasn't treated as a bad thing. It was actually seen as like this badge of honor to be someone that could embody both masculine and feminine
This
energy.
is the babaylan.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if it has something to do with that, which seems it seems like that's not the first thing that the average person would think of because it's like so far away from today's world.
Yeah.
And we don't really know, I think, as Filipinos, or at least I didn't learn about babaylan or any of that growing up. So it's not in our consciousness, but I guess it still lives in everyday life.
I don't know what that is. What's babaylan?
Babaylan, and I don't want to like, okay, I don't know if you, okay. So the babaylan is basically the revered shaman of a community. So it is one of the highest forms and highest positions you can have in like a social order because it's sacred. And some babaylans would be presented as like very gender fluid.
Okay, yeah.
So they would even get with the same sex, present as either as feminine when they're a man and vice versa. And so it was not looked down upon.
Amazing. So
I
it's
don't-
like all encompassing.
Yes.
Like
It is this like sacred
spiritual
thing. So that was pre-colonial
Okay.
Philippines, and so it seems maybe, I don't know if that has influence in how Filipinos view, or in the mainland at least, view queerness today. Again, not to say that it's accepted because it's not necessarily. I think it's a lot in like entertainment spaces.
Mhm.
It's like far away. Be over there. Be gay over there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then when it's in your household, that's a different story, I think.
For sure. And I came of age like 80s, 90s. So it's also in the wake of the AIDS epidemic. Which
Yeah. How was that?
For me?
Yeah.
My exposure to, I mean, I'm born in 81. So I wasn't frolicking the Castro
Yeah.
at the
Then you-
time during the height of the AIDS epidemic as a sexual. But I think my first exposure to like HIV and AIDS was, Magic Johnson.
That's what-
And then Ryan White, who is this kid who had a blood transfusion, I believe, and then contracted HIV, became AIDS, and he passed away. And there was like a Tom Hanks movie called Philadelphia, but
Denzel was in there.
yeah, basically like he was the lawyer, and HIV/AIDS was associated with like a death sentence pretty much. And so you couldn't disentangle like gay men and AIDS and death for the 80s and 90s. And it wasn't until you actually like folks like Magic Johnson that shows you can live with HIV. And of
Mhm.
course a lot of like queer activists, which included a lot of queer women that were right there, like
Yeah.
alongside gay men, in organizations like ACT UP, that wanted to not just fight for like resources because the president at the time didn't give a can I say shit?
You can say
Yeah.
fucking shit.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
He-
Fucking piece of shit Ronald Reagan
Yeah.
didn't give a shit about gay men, and his first lady Nancy Reagan, who was best friends with like Rock Hudson, who died of AIDS complications, she didn't give a shit either. So like a whole generation of gay men just died.
Mhm.
A generation of gay men that could have been like role models, could have helped be there for like folks like myself. So growing up, there was just this stigma about being gay that was also linked to like public health.
Yes, it was not handled well, obviously, right? I don't know the specifics of it. Maybe, if if you want to share, but from my general picture of it was that this was this came to light in the public,
Mm-hmm.
everyone feared it, and there was stigma around it, and therefore public funds were not allocated to help, create a solution for this.
No, so I mean, you could compare it to what we witnessed with COVID in 2020, where COVID people were dying like dropping like flies, similar to the first couple months of COVID. And we saw during COVID, like, there was a lot of energy that went in trying to figure this out, trying to find a vaccine, trying to figure out what medicines would work, from the CDC and other places. And that, as you can imagine, was not
Yeah.
the response, because the people that were impacted were mostly gay men. Pretty much like 90+% were gay men. And so it took a very long time for people to acknowledge that it even existed. And then, of course, research money, like the millions of dollars that went into research, I don't think it hurt, like, to have folks like Magic Johnson, to have folks like Arthur Ashe,
Yeah.
the black tennis player, who were beloved by the world, by the country,
Mhm.
and they were saying they were living with HIV, that all of a sudden made it, I think it galvanized people to want to help in ways that a gay person living with HIV or AIDS couldn't have the same effect.
I think it humanized it
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Because even I remember being young and like the crazy shit that flew around, like it's from monkeys. So it's like
It was
if you had it, it's because you're like,
It's like a
engaging in
punishment.
bestiality. Like
It's a
it's
punishment
just
for being
totally
gay.
like dehumanizing people that had it. And even when it was straight relationships, it was like it's the people on the down low that
Oh,
were
yeah.
like causing it. So it was like
Mhm.
just like a lot of, I think, dehumanizing narrative around. Was it Princess Di that like famously like finally shook someone's hand or something that was HIV positive?
Mhm. She would go to like different countries in Africa, and
Yeah.
there was, for a variety of reasons, not a lot of support for like AIDS treatment over there, and she would hug children and embrace children, shake people's hands, and I think she also did it with like folks in England and other places, which made people realize, because there are a lot of people that have very ignorant views that, oh, I can't go near, I can't breathe the same air, I can't touch.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, some of the young men in the book had parents who,
Yeah.
there
Oh
was
my
this one
God.
story of this one kid who was a great kid. He was a student at UCLA. He was, incredible academic record, was class president all 4 years of high school. Just was just this really, really delight of a kid. And he told me that when his mom and dad found out that he was gay, they had some of those kind of reactions. He told me this devastating story of when he was at the dinner table, and like there's cups, and like you're sitting with your family, there's cups. He grabbed his mom's cup and drank water from it, and she took the cup and she immediately put it in the sink. And I was just like, yo, that's your mom.
That's
And
messed up.
it was messed up. There, he told me another story about how he sat on her bed and she changed the sheets. And he said it was because, she thought maybe him being gay was somehow associated with like dirtiness, disease.
Yeah.
And she did this when he was in high school. Like, this wasn't even when he was in like,
This
he
is
was,
a kid.
he's a kid. He's a
Yeah.
kid. So you can even imagine, like, the person that's supposed to make you feel most safe in this world does that. It fucks with your mind. It fucks
Yeah.
with your heart. And so you're just dealing with a lot of like conflicted emotions about, you love your parents, you want to prove that you're grateful to them, and you want to be successful for them. A lot of Filipinos are like, oh, I need to support my family when you grow up. And at the same time, when it comes to them knowing like one of the core aspects of who you are, they react in a way that makes you feel like you don't belong in the house. It was devastating. There were a lot of times I would do these interviews with these young men, and we would cry together. Or when they would, when we would part ways, I just had to like pause and,
Mhm.
go to the bathroom, or I just would like, or sit in my car after the interview, and I would just like cry. Not because, like, why would I cry? I would cry because it just hurt.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I was in my late 20s. I was a grown ass man by this time, but it brought me back to all the times when I experienced that kind of rejection from people that were supposed to keep me safe.
Yeah, I was wondering how that's like being an academic in this space,
Mm-hmm.
and you also essentially being the subject of a lot of this, having gone through all of that,
Yeah.
well, how do you separate yourself, or do you separate yourself from your studies?
You can't. I think a lot of times when people think of research and studies, they have this idea that you have to be objective. And in some ways that's drawn from like the white man version of academia
Yeah.
where they
Ob-
would
What is
trials
objective?
and shit like that.
yeah, this like false perception that only white men can be truly objective. They would like go to whatever, like different countries and observe folks or study communities, and they could look at it from arm's length, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this idea that like as a person that's in the inside of this community, I don't have the same ability to be objective. But to be honest, I'm like literally gonna burp.
So bad.
Do it.
We're gonna keep that in.
Gas is like right here.
Get it.
I ate a lot of bread yesterday, and bread.
Bread. Okay.
Oh wait, did you hear bugs?
Well, yeah.
I ate a lot of bugs yesterday, just casually, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be bloated today."
I'm just excessively gassy nowadays. So
You're like, I'm just.
I just snore and fart all night, according to my girlfriend. So
That's actually true, right?
it's a great thing I'm not single, and it hit me like 7 years into a relationship. That's like because
And now she's stuck.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. She's like, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, we're here. You already love me.
What were we-
Yes.
what-
The concept of objectivity.
Oh yeah. So to be honest, like the reason I write any of my books is because I feel like, and someone told me this, like it kind of resembled this Toni Morrison quote where it's this idea like if you don't have the book, if you don't see the book that you want to read, then you better write it. I'm butchering the quote, but it's that.
It sounds.
And as a college student, I was so desperate to find books or writings about Filipino Americans because I was in college. I went to a predominantly white school, where folks were also like super wealthy as well. And I
Stanford.
went to Stanford
Yeah.
for college.
Heard of it?
Familiar? Yeah.
Yeah, and I went from living in Eagle Rock, which is like 20% Filipino, to a school where there was like 20 Filipinos in the whole freshman class.
Mm.
And I lived in a dorm that was predominantly white, and I think there's again moments where you just share part of yourself and you see people either don't react positively or they don't know what to do with you or they reject you. Maybe not outright, but in subtle ways, they just don't look interested in hearing about what it's like to grow up Filipino in LA. And, I had a lot of friends that experienced this that weren't just Filipino, but like Black, Latino, Native American, and they would take like cool ass classes, like an African American psychology class, like a Chicano Latino religion class.
Right.
There were all these amazing classes, and there just wasn't the equivalent for Filipinos. There was Asian American studies classes, but a lot of it was about like Korean experiences, Chinese experience, Japanese experience. And it wasn't until I had this one professor who was at the time, she was at Stanford to get her PhD. Her name was Dawn Mabalon. So I think link her in the show notes. But she is amazing. She was the first Filipino American professor that I had that taught Filipino American studies. And she basically said something kind of like that Toni Morrison quote of like, if you feel like you're not finding the stories about your community or your history, you got to be the one writing it. So she's actually the reason that I even considered pursuing a PhD, even thought about the idea that being a professor was possible, because before that I didn't know anything about.
What did
That
you
career
set out
path.
to do when you were there?
Oh my God. I think I just wanted to go to college and get some job. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have like a specific plan. And maybe I think my dad was really pushing me to be a lawyer, but
Okay.
like I'm very when people tell me to do things, like
You're gonna do the opposite.
I'm going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
So he was really
You need to be straight.
He did tell me to be straight. So I only became gay because he was just so insistent on me. Like,
You're like, I'm actually doing this to spite him.
I was like, I'll show you.
Actually, not really gay.
I'll show you.
Yeah. But anyway, but she taught this class. She was from Stockton, California, and she was writing and researching about Stockton, California for her dissertation. And
Stockton is in.
That's in NorCal. That's like I'm on like the Stockton.
near
location.
Sacramento is near.
But my family all like my dad once they immigrated here was in Lathrop.
Oh wow.
Like a bunch of my cousins all lived and grew up in Stockton, and so
Oh,
I
so you know.
lived in that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
chilling
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and she made a good point of like, well, if you're on the inside, then you know what questions to ask, you know what makes people tick, you know how to connect to the communities. They're gonna talk to you because they trust you. And so it's always been my approach to my own research that I want to have a relationship with the people I'm writing about. But that's what was motivating me to write the first book about Filipinos in LA, because I'm a Filipino from LA, and I wanted to read a book as a college student about Filipinos in LA. The second book was a little bit different. The Brown and Gay in LA book was honestly like I had a very personal reason for wanting to write this book. I was, I think, 22, 23 when I came out to my family, and it wasn't intentional. There was no plan. It just sort of
What do
got
you mean
revealed.
intentional?
Mhm.
Oh, how do we say this? It's not a sad story. It's just a funny story. I was in New Jersey for a wedding, and you know, Filipino moms, there's no sense of privacy. So she was going through my bag, and she found some pills. Not like fun pills like ecstasy or anything, but like Wellbutrin. It's like a antidepressant. And she's a nurse, so her first instinct is like, why does my son have antidepressants?
Okay.
And then I didn't have them. I wasn't depressed,
Yeah.
but I was a smoker at the time.
Oh, and
And
is it used?
cigarettes, you want to quit smoking, they give you antidepressants to quit smoking because
It lowers that drive.
it lowers the drive. So I had them for wanting to quit smoking. So she did that thing, that uncomfortable thing where they're like, "Hey, I need to talk to you," and you know something's wrong. Oh my god, I feel like the
I know my heart.
I'm like, but I know it's in it in here. So she was like, "I need to talk to you. I found these pills in your bag." I was like, "Fuck, what do I like?"
Did you know right away what it was? What pill she was referring to?
Mm-hmm.
You did, okay.
I did, and I knew. I was like 20, maybe 23, and my entire family was in New Jersey for a huge wedding, and
I love that timing.
yeah, they were all there.
She like got him like she's like, I want to make a toast, and just
wanna
like.
make a toast.
But she
Crush
found
up some
them,
of your Wellbutrin.
and I told her like, I have them because they're for smoking cessation, like to quit smoking. She was like, "What? You smoke?" So she was pissed about the smoking, and then I don't know. I made some shit up about like, oh, school's stressful, and
Like, I'd rather you be depressed.
yeah, she's like, please be depressed. And what had happened was, at the end of this convo, she's like, "Do you have anything else you want to tell me?"
Wow.
And in my head, I was like,
She knows.
she knows. And I was
Totally.
like, okay, she's giving me the opening. So
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, Mom, I don't like girls that way."
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, "What do you mean?" So she did not know.
Elaborate.
And I was like, "I don't like girls in that way." Like, at this point, I was still very afraid to even utter the words gay. It was a different time.
Yeah.
Or even queer, let alone queer. So,
Oh, what is queer?
so I was shitting bricks because she was not giving me the opening to come out to her. And I just came out to her.
Did you realize at that point that that's not what she meant?
Yeah, hell yeah, I noticed. I was like,
backspace, Control Z.
there's no backspacing,
Yeah.
Control, Alt, Delete saying I'm a homo. So like, it's not gonna. Wait, can I?
No, sorry. No. You say that. Finish your thought, and then I have something about that. Okay.
Okay. But there's no reversing this. It's you
Cat's
can't.
out of the bag.
She can't unhear it. I can't unsay it. Cat's out of the bag. So I told her, like, I think that I'm more attracted to boys. I like boys. And what's interesting is her first reaction was kind of like, she displayed a lot of empathy and said,
Okay.
like, I kind of knew, or whatever. And she told me actually some really challenging things. I don't they're not my stories to share, but some challenging things that hinted to me that like sometimes life doesn't go as you plan. So I thought that, oh damn, she's kind of cool with it. But over time, I think the reality set in, and it was some
Let's see.
like we didn't see eye to eye for a couple years when it came to being gay. And so for me, this is like the most long-winded answer to why did I write the
So
book.
we're here to hear your
But
story.
for me, I didn't know how to get to the other side with my own family. Like I didn't know how to get to be at a point where we were like we felt like we were cool with each other again. And they're amazing now. Please don't.
Mhm.
Like they're super like not just accepting but embracing,
Yeah.
and they're very knowledgeable about gay stuff now. But
You're like, I wrote books about it. You guys.
yeah, they go to my book talks. My dad read drafts of the book before the
Oh,
got published,
wow.
just like bananas. But with my parents at the time, I was like, I don't know how the fuck we're gonna get to the other side.
Yeah.
But I was like living my best life in LA, going out to like these like gay Latino, gay like black and brown bars and clubs. And I met a lot of folks there who were just like me, son of immigrants, and their parents were like cool with it, or
Oh.
their parents were accepting. And of course they were like, well, it wasn't always like that. So I became intrigued about like,
Okay.
how the fuck do you go from like this one piece of news, this revelation that you're gay that can essentially like
Shatters.
shatter family relations, and then how do you patch that up? So the book is really about just interviewing folks about like, how did you go from that moment to being embraced again by your family, and not just in that direction, but how do you come to embrace the family that rejected you at one point? And that's how the book started. I just needed to have a blueprint for how to go about my own life,
Yeah.
which is why I needed to interview these folks about how they did it.
That's
Wow.
and now that you say when you say that's so personal, I see the whole picture. And you also interview a lot of Filipinos alongside Latinos.
Mm-hmm.
And Willie and I were talking about how I didn't have a concept even of Latino until I moved here from the Philippines. But then the Filipinos that you've come across actually, you say, identify more closely with Latinos. I don't know, Willie, how you grew up here and what that was like for you, but I grew up, I was like, yeah, I'm Asian
Mm-hmm.
who lives in the Philippines. My neighboring countries are China and this and that. But I imagine it must have been different for you both, even if Willie and Anthony.
I would think it would be like,
Yeah.
that's a like, I mean,
For me growing up, I identified more with the Islanders.
Okay.
So like a lot of Tongans
Mhm.
and like Samoans near where I grew up. So we'd always call ourselves Pacific Islander.
Mhm.
But I also always I've told Trish this. I grew up getting a lot of like racial slurs, things like that were more related to the Latino community. Like that's usually what I face. I was even telling her the other day, like I got profiled at a store, right? They said like you walked in with your bag being empty, and I was like, really, motherfucker, because that's my iPad in it,
Mhm.
And like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I go through that laundry list every time I walk in the store with a bag. Like, I don't want to leave my iPad in the car, but like also I don't want to deal with shit when I go inside because they're gonna see me some kind of way with the bag. So I always felt like I also wasn't perceived by the world as Asian or like necessarily like the model minority or any of that. So I and then my interactions where I grew up in Sacramento, heavy Asian population. And I don't want to say like I had negative interactions with the Japanese and primarily Chinese. There's some Korean, but it's really heavy Chinese, Japanese
Yeah.
population there. I always felt like I wasn't a part of the Asian crew,
Yeah.
So I never really identified or felt close with the Asian community in that sense. And so I've never really like clicked up that way when I think of being Asian. I'm like, I guess I am if you want to lump me in somewhere, but I don't really feel that way.
And that was like a common experience for a lot of the people I interviewed for the first book.
Yeah.
There was this like unstated feeling, or they couldn't articulate it, that something was different about the way they maneuvered through the world, where they weren't being perceived or like clocked as Asian, and would often get clocked as something else, Latino, Pacific Islander. And that is in some way, and of course, when you think about like television, when you think of, or when you ask the average person about an Asian, they're gonna think of someone who's Chinese most likely. So yeah, I mean, categories are funny because they end up changing how people see you. So all of a sudden, if you are seen by the world as like Latino, and then you
Yeah.
reveal to them like, oh, I'm actually like Filipino, people's like whatever, however, all the ideas they had about you might shift a little bit.
You know, I think like the immediate assumption in my experience is so powerful though, because even with Latino people, right? If they start speaking Spanish to me and I'm like, oh, lo siento, hablo poquito español, soy Filipino. I can't tell you how many times they're like, oh, Filipino. Continue in Spanish. And I'm like, no, I just said like I gave you what I know. I gave you the whole
That's
sentence that I wrote down that I got in
That's all I
Spanish.
got.
Yeah.
But they're still just like, nah, bro, you speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Is it like if you looked more East Asian, you probably also would have perceived yourself differently too?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, because the other thing is, even when I was a little kid, if like kids were calling me like names or making kind of racial things about being Latino, I've never corrected anyone.
Yeah.
I've never been like, I'm not even da 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 da, because I was hyper aware early on, like it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
What's wrong is wrong.
yeah, like even with the shit going on now, right? I'm like, they come for you, they're coming for me, because like that's what they perceive. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The truth doesn't matter. It's the perception that is the truth. Is the core.
Yeah, and kind of like we were talking about earlier about the way like queerness or gender, the rules change in different places. So we were talking about what it means to be queer in the Philippines versus here. I think when it comes to like race as well, the rules change. Like if you're navigating the world in Vallejo, which is like
Yeah.
like Filipino
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
black, like
Yeah.
Which my dad lived there. Actually, I spent a lot of time in Vallejo as well.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Valley
So
Trail, 707.
Where is that?
Yeah, shout out. It's like the Bay Area.
Okay.
There's
It's
like Six
between
Flags.
Sacramento. Yeah. Used to be Marine World back in the day. I think now it's like Africa USA.
haven't-
Something like that.
I only knew Six Flags. Magic Mountain is the only Six Flags to me.
Yeah,
So
it's like that except in Vallejo.
In Vallejo.
Oh, okay.
Was it? Although Fairfield now has that restaurant. There's the Casper something. He's a really like well-known social media Filipino chef,
Oh, I don't know.
and he has a restaurant in Fairfield, which is like just outside of Vallejo.
Okay. But yeah, it's I don't even know what we're talking about. But we're just talking about like how you're perceived by the world can be different depending on where you're at. But I appreciate the fact that you said you don't correct them, because I think there's a lot of people that will, like right now on social media, there's all this shit talking about Zoran Mamdani,
Yes.
about how he's like right wingers that are saying like he's eating with his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then people are like saying how like uncivilized that is. And then people are like, well, there's a lot of Asians that eat with their hands, right?
Yeah.
And instead of being in solidarity, there's all these there's a subset of Asians that are like, we don't
I
eat
don't
with our
do that.
hands.
Yeah.
Only the Filipinos eat with their hands.
Oh yeah, I clocked that early on, but that's the type of shit that always made me like, I
Yeah.
don't know. And well, I don't want to get into it. There's a lot of like just racial things that have happened in the U.S. where I always just felt like a lot of times a lot of Asian communities don't really stand on business for people. And as somebody that has been perceived outside of kind of that like model minority group,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like where you at?
And
Hello,
Yeah.
you know?
that's a tactic. I feel like in history, so I think what a lot of people don't know, and I was new to it at some point, is that like Asian, like people think there's like this rivalry between like Asians and other groups, either
Mhm.
Asian and Black folks, Asian and Latinos. But historically, there was a lot of moments of coalition between Asians, Latinos, and Black folks. But it was right-wing folks that designed this idea of the model minority as a way to divide and conquer.
That come about.
Oh man, that's a whole nother
Okay.
podcast.
We'll have to do a separate podcast on that because I'm really curious. Obviously, things don't happen in a vacuum, but
In a nutshell, they were saying that, because Asians were coming as immigrants. So a lot of them were like engineers. This is like 1960s, 1970s. And as a way to undermine the claims of Black people and Latino people during the Civil Rights Movement, saying like, hey, there's all this inequality, Republicans, like right-wing folks were saying like, hey, look at those Asians. How come they can make it and you can't? That's basically the model minority thing. And of course, like on paper, it's a positive stereotype. And so there's some folks of Asian backgrounds are like, yeah, we're model minority. And so kind of embrace the divide and conquer so long as you're like the winning side of the divide and conquer. But yeah, it's a
You talked about that in your book a bit, though,
Mhm.
about some of the pros and cons as a student. One is like you automatically end up in good classes, but then sometimes the expectations that you have for some reason a leg up academically, you're kind of receiving less. Or the assumption is you should be performing higher versus needing assistance.
Yeah. So they can work the opposite way for, people will look at an Asian kid or a Filipino
Yeah.
kid and say like, oh, they're smart, they're hardworking, they come from a good family. Those are all assumptions based on the way they appear. When in reality, that kid might actually need a lot of help in math or science or whatever. But because they're perceived as like already knowing stuff, like the teacher can't even identify that there's a problem. Like in some ways it provides a privilege because if they're, I don't know, sneaking, if they're ditching class or in the hallway during class, then they'll assume they're not getting into some trouble in the same way that you were with the story of your backpack story.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like when they need help, they're not getting it because
Right.
folks are assuming everything's okay.
I also liken it to the idea because, people will say like, well, you have the advantage because you were given that advantage. But the way that my brain is thinking about it is that if it is not true power, it is kind of like bottom power, I guess, in
Bottom
no, I
power?
know, I like wait, not in
Power bottom?
I know.
Get it.
Bottom power or bottom
Wait,
power?
do you know what this is?
A power bottom?
Yeah.
I know I haven't experienced it, but I know my understanding is yes, but if you ask me to articulate it, I will feel very uncomfortable articulating it right now.
It's okay.
But I know what a bottom is, and I can imagine what a powerful one would do.
Yeah.
Yes, so-
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You
So
can stop there. Yeah.
Now I'm getting red.
But back to bottom
But-
power.
Yeah, I've never heard. That's the first thing I thought of when they said bottom power. But it has nothing to do with, I guess, the Kyotuni, right?
No.
It's something that Atichi used as in terms of feminism and how
Okay.
bottom power is used by a lot of, I don't know which specific African culture,
Uh-huh.
but used by to describe women who are basically using their femininity to gain power, like
I
their
see.
sexuality.
Okay.
So
okay.
bottom power,
Mhm.
but the reason that it's not true power is because it is bestowed upon you. It's the
Yes.
same way that the model minority is bestowed upon you and can be taken away.
And can be taken away.
Yeah.
Like white women Republicans
Yeah.
who are watching women's rights being stripped away, but they're like, we're in proximity to these
Mm-hmm.
Republican men, so we'll be okay. But they'll get turned on eventually,
Right.
Not turned. They'll get turned on.
Oh.
Like people,
They'll be
they will.
betrayed
They'll
eventually.
be betrayed. Oh my.
There will be treasonous acts eventually.
Turning on.
And these bottom powers are just getting turned on left and right around here.
Separate episode.
But to your point, like the groups that think they have power that are being oppressed by the dominant group, in this case, maybe like Asian folks, there's a temptation to want to like
It-
live in that,
Cling to that.
because it's associated with like material benefits, economic benefits, social benefits. But you're right, at some point it can be taken away because it's not getting at the root problem. So it's
Yeah.
much more advantageous for minority groups to band together to fight a common cause.
Right. Well,
Can I like ask a question, because we started on this string, but then I don't know, I was talking about like my mom's story and homo something. You said
Oh,
story.
yes. Okay, this is so dumb, like of a comment, but I have of my friends who have come out to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's like two who I was close with, and both of them, when they came out, said a version of "I'm a homo," but they specifically said homo.
Yeah.
So when you said that, it just
Yeah.
triggered that thought, because I remember when I was talking to them, I was like, we have never used that word together
Yeah.
before. Why did you say that? But both of them were like, hey, man. One of them said he needed a place. He was sadly getting kicked out of his home. He needed a place to stay. And he was like,
Yeah.
hey, man, I need a place to stay because I don't know if you heard, but I'm a big homo.
Yeah.
And then the other one came out to me on National Coming Out Day. And he was like, yeah, man, I'm just calling everybody I love this in my life, and I want you to know I'm a homo. And for both of them, I was like kind of like struck by like, oh, that's an interesting word choice because I don't think we ever in like our vernacular use that together. So it was funny that you said that as well. Just kind of spark like, is that I
Yeah,
don't know, is that a thing? I don't know.
I think so. I think language is powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't deny. So what you perceive as something that's said in jest, I think for that person, like you got to imagine this term has been hurled at them all their life.
Right.
So for them to be able to like take ownership of it and say it in a way that is in their control. Like I'm gonna use this to be funny or be cheeky,
Mm-hmm.
be silly about it, and to be kind of like hilarious about it, right?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes when friends share difficult news with others, there's this idea that they don't want their friendship dynamic to change. Like you still want to be the funny ass friend that talks shit
Yeah.
at your homie, and you
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah,
be like sad gay boy that's like I'm gay. And so, it's. I feel like I did the same sort of thing, even though I don't know who your
joke
friends
about
are.
it.
Got it. Okay, so you think it's sort of like coloring it with some like humor to
It's
sort
in
of break
jest.
the uncomfortability and tension of that moment for maybe from their end of having to say it.
Yeah, perhaps. I think that totally is the
It's like a
case.
cushion.
Got it.
Like you need some sort of cushion of humor.
Yeah, yeah. I just remember the second time it happened, I was like, this is a trend now.
is-
Like this is
There's a script somewhere in there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like,
Yeah. But
Yeah.
language is important. I think that there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of examples of groups sort of taking slurs or reclaiming. We all know what I'm referring to. But like, even with like my group of friends, obviously, like there's a word that starts with the letter F.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
That is like, it brought a lot of pain to me growing up in middle school and high school. But like I'm not gonna use it here. But let's just say, if gay boys are around other gay boys, they're gonna throw around that term in jest.
Yeah, because my friends use it too, and I'm like, can I say it as a straight passing bisexual woman? I don't know. The jury's out. I don't
The
know.
jury's out on that one.
Yeah.
I don't participate.
Yeah. I don't think Queer Stilo can.
I don't
Yeah,
participate.
Yeah.
I'm a
I'll,
non-participant.
like, yeah.
Mhm.
Let's keep
I
it.
observe. I don't
This
participate.
observer.
Yeah.
But I guess as we wrap up, a lot of what you have shared and a lot of your work, like you said, is really because you wanted to see this world, this writing exist, and it didn't, and so you went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
That has impacted so many Filipinos. Your work is cited and referred to and loved by so many in the community, and it's such important foundational work. How do you imagine brown folks and queer brown folks today can find belongingness like the way that you did in this work in a world where it's increasingly difficult to do so?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that in general, there's like this loneliness epidemic. People feel isolated and cut off from each other or afraid to be themselves around each other. With social media, there's so much temptation to curate a version of yourself that isn't actually complex and nuanced. It's just sort of typecasting yourself in order to get likes. So I think it's honestly super hard to find belonging. When I was writing about it, these were young men that grew up in a time when we didn't have smartphones. It was pre-2007. So their only choice to find community was to go to the bars and clubs or to go online, but not in like on your phone. You had to like sit at a computer and dial. Yeah, and find it that way.
Gotta log on.
And in some ways, obviously, like smartphones connect us in really amazing ways. We met via smartphone, but I think that there's something lost about the fact that like physical spaces aren't as urgent anymore because we think that interacting on the phone or sending memes to each other counts as like deep social connection.
Yeah.
And it could start it, but it does, like, I think we use it as a substitute. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of anti-gay, anti-trans stuff that is making it difficult to form communities. I can't imagine what it's like to be a gay or trans kid in Florida, given what's happening over there, or in even in like I don't want to typecast California as like super progressive, because down in Chino Valley Middle School, you got parents that are like fighting, criminalizing like trans kids, and their parents. But how do we find community? Honestly, I feel like my answer is super old school. I think there needs to be a lot of just physical, being in the same place, um, interaction, like happenstance. I think there needs to be a lot of happenstance, because that's what you had in school, that's what you have at work. And when you're gay or trans, that automatically puts you at a disadvantage in a lot of places. If you're living in the suburbs, you can't just go to the grocery store and assume that the person that's there is going to be friendly toward you if you're gay. You can't just necessarily talk about it. The other thing I'll say is that a lot of the onus of finding community, and this is where I'm going to clock straight folks, a lot of the onus of finding community is always how do like folks from the LGBTQ like find community with each other.
Yeah.
I think after marriage equality, people have this assumption like, oh, we have gay marriage now, and
The work is done.
the work is
Right.
done. You
Like
get
a civil rights movement.
yeah, we get
Racism's gone.
like racism's gone. You get the gay family member gets invited to the wedding, they get a +1, and they think that they deserve a medal, right?
Mhm.
But I think what straight people need to, like, where they need to get their shit together is that tolerating someone and embracing their entire world, culture, and history is a different story. So I think I can say all the things in the world about what gay people need to do or queer people need to do to find community, but I think what straight people can do to have gay and queer folks have community is to decenter themselves a little bit. Like, go to the fucking gay bar. Like,
Mhm.
ask about gay history. Learn it on your own. Don't bother your gay friend about what Stonewall is. Watch Drag Race, or whatever. Dress in drag. Dress as a witch.
Just the witch for Halloween.
Yeah.
Just doing the work early on, baby.
Yeah, because as you can imagine, like when you're a gay or a queer or trans person, you've spent a shit ton of hours like choreographing your behavior and like thinking about the
Yeah.
right or wrong thing to say. Like, it's fucking exhausting at some point, which is why I want to write this book. I wanted to honor that labor and all that energy that goes into that. But, if I could make a plea to like straight folks, like, think about what it's like to be in the space when you don't get to talk about all the aspects of who you are. When you go to a family party and everyone's talking about football, and you can't talk about RuPaul's Drag Race or something, like,
Right.
that sucks. And that if there's a way to flip that and have spaces get more queered, then I think community can happen more organically in any space, not just like LGBTQ specific spaces.
Anthony, before we go, I want to have you invite people to check out your work and any upcoming work that you have to stay in touch.
Yeah, so I'm working on a third book. It's hopefully going to be done in a few months, which means it'll be out in maybe 2027. It's about Asian Americans in the criminal justice system.
Ooh.
A little bit of a pivot, but after 2020 and all the anti-Asian hate, I think the reason I wanted to work on this book is because we have such a narrow idea of like anti-Asian violence. We think it's someone that's like walking the street and gets punched by a stranger. And that's terrible. Don't get me wrong. But there's all sorts of other kinds of violence that Asian Americans experience by police, from incarceration, that I write about in this book. And so it's a very different
Mm-hmm.
book for me. It's a stretch. I'm not someone whose life has necessarily been as impacted by the criminal justice system in the same way like I was impacted by the topics of my first books. And so my hope is that in this book I can share stories of people like Angelo Quinto from and other Asian Americans who've been harmed by the
Mhm.
justice system. And I can use myself as like the person that's learning this along with you.
Yeah.
Because I'm very upfront in the book that like there's a lot of shit I didn't know, and this is my journey of learning these things.
Well, I can't wait to get my hands on it in 2 years. Got like Game of Thrones. I have to wait 2 years for it. But thank you so much for being here, Anthony, and for
Thank
for
you.
doing the work that you do.
Yeah.
You've inspired so many, and there's more work to be done.
Yeah. And I'm always an open book. So please hit me up. Like, I know that you were
Don't tell Anthony that you slept on his book in San Francisco.
or do.
That's been
Okay. Wait, thank you for having me. I'm honored. I'm so happy you guys are doing this because these platforms, like, there's some random Filipino kid in Missouri that needs to see this, and it's gonna save their life. So I'm really happy you're doing this too.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.